Before we start this podcast, I would just like for you guys to send a little love to our queer community. We just recently suffered a loss, and this podcast is dedicated to them.
We love you.
We love you.
Welcome to Loud and Queer, your one-stop shop for everything viewed through the queer eye. What's today going to be about, Braxton?
Gender.
You guys ready for this? This is going to be a big one.
You better take notes.
You actually take this time to pause, grab a pen and paper, because we're just going to be spitting some ill shit at this point.
You got a pen?
I do.
You ready? I got a pen. I got notes.
It's got
for days
on it. I mean, gender, it is pretty much a big topic for being such like a fake thing. But there is a lot to it.
Believe it or not, it's not just a black and white thing. A lot of people get that confused.
That is the thing. Braxton, how about you tell me what your pronouns are?
My pronouns are she, her, hers, and sometimes Y, as in why is gender a thing? I'm just saying. What are your pronouns?
You can call me whatever you want as long as you call me. I'm pretty fluid. I take whatever you want to call me.
I'm so mad at that.
What?
I'm so mad.
Beginning the topic of gender, I feel as though we need to do a little bit of a fact check, and we need to really get into the difference between gender and sex.
I like to say that gender is between the ears and sex is between the legs.
Oh, that's a cute little thing.
You know, something to remember. So your gender is, you know, how you perceive yourself, what you think, what's most comfortable to you. And your sex is your anatomy, what you were born with.
Right. I usually just describe it as gender being a social construct, being society's like perceptions of the sexes and the roles that they hold in society.
Yeah.
And sex being a biological component.
That's actually a good point, though, because you have to think about, you know, what comes along with being a girl and, like, what people expect from you when you're a girl.
That's gender.
You know, yeah, that's what gender is. And it's kind of weird because none of that is real.
Absolutely none of it is real. And, I mean, when it comes to the whole gender versus sex thing, I think where people start to get a little bit, like, confused is just because they want to believe that it is the same thing.
Right, but they can definitely differ. They
Absolutely.
can be the same, but it's possible that they can differ.
And that's where we get into the terms cisgender and transgender. For those of you taking notes, go ahead and start.
Oh, yeah, please write that down.
Yes, please, because
this will come up. It'll be on the test. I'm just letting you know.
We're going to collect all the notes for the final at the end of the year, and it's going to be worth about, like, 45% of your grade.
You better take good notes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cisgender means when your sex and your gender, so between the legs and between the ears, match up. They're the same thing. Like, you are a girl, you identify as a girl, and your sex, the thing, you know, that's on your birth certificate says girl. They match up, they align, they agree.
Mine says woman, not girl. Transgender, at least the way that I describe it, is when your gender differs from what you were assigned at birth. Which is where we walk into the terms, if you're also writing this down, get this. AFAB and AMAB, I think that's how you pronounce them. That's just assigned female at birth and assigned male at birth. Cute little acronyms. I mostly see them written. I don't really hear anybody, like, say them out loud.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I haven't actually... I'm sure I've probably seen it somewhere, but that's not a term that rang a bell to me immediately, so I definitely learned something there.
I think it's actually really nice to put it in words because I know that around transgender people, it can get a little dicey when you, like, are trying to find the words to say and stuff like that. So AFAB and AMAB are really good ones just to describe, like, well, exactly that. Assigned female at birth versus assigned male at birth.
Because it definitely helps with not offending someone, because a lot of people, when they think transgender, they always want to say, oh, well, they used to be this, right?
Right. But
and nobody...
that's not even really accurate. Because
right. They never were.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about gender as being like a headspace kind of thing. So in your mind, if you have always felt feminine, if you have always liked girly things, then you've always been a girl.
A girl.
So having terms like that helps simplify things that otherwise could be complicated. Which gender in and of itself is a very, very large and complicated thing, having been created from the human conscious entirely.
That's true. It's a social construct. All of this is learned behavior. And
all of this is fake.
Yeah,
that's why
fake. That's why it's so difficult to talk
exactly.
about.
Exactly. Like, it's like Harry Potter. There's 7 books to this shit. There's something that is not fully talked about, and that would be intersex, where someone may have male and female genitalia at the same time.
I'm not sure if this is still said, because, terms are changing constantly, and there are some terms that were used before that have become offensive. A lot of doctors describe it as genitalia that may be ambiguous. I know a lot of people may not like that term, I'm not sure. But to make it a little bit easier to describe, there are some people that are born with genitalia that the doctors are unsure whether it's male or female. So right. They
and we mean sex here, not gender.
Right.
Male or female sex.
Sex. So that's where they would, take a step towards, performing surgery on the
which is actually
baby.
Kind of fucked up, because it's like the parents are then making a choice, and
you don't give the baby a choice in the matter, Exactly. So when they grow up, they really don't know where to identify because you made a choice for them.
Like, they were born a super special and creative, unique individual.
Right.
And you kind of strip that from them to make them conform to what?
They don't need to be defined as either male or female. They can be exactly who they are. Exactly.
As long as there is no danger involved,
right.
As long as the health is secured, then I don't see why anybody needs to be removing anything.
Exactly. Before the baby can talk.
Right. You just out here making choices for a whole human being.
Basically, they're just like, oh, it looks funny, I don't like that, I'm taking it off.
Yeah, see,
it's really bad.
That runs into the whole parents, like, owning their kids and treating them like property.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that. I think that's where we get into issues like dysphoria, where, for example, young trans individuals are forced to wear clothing and present as the gender that they're not. And I think that can be really damaging towards some people. I mean, it's just more of a psychological problem that's being inflicted on these individuals. And I know I've experienced it myself. I do not like to present too masculine. I guess because it was just forced on me at a young age. I was always told not to walk with a little swish, and I hated that because, I mean, these hips do not lie, and they like to swish. I was assigned male at birth, and I was the only son, I guess I'm gonna say. Oh, I hate to say it, but whatever. I was my mother's only son, and that meant a lot of things fell upon me. I did not like to hold all that weight just because of something that I have no control over.
Right. And parents also get very, like, possessive over the gender of their child. Like what you just said, your
Absolutely.
mom... Yeah, your mom, you're the only son. So your mom holds that, very dear to her heart. Like, mm-hmm. I have a boy and I have a girl and it's perfect. A lot of parents can't get that out of their heads, and that's, like, one of the reasons why they don't accept their trans children a lot of the time.
I think there's a lot of wrong in that, but the way I see it at this point, it's a generational thing, and this is so bleak, but the meek will inherit the earth, and that's all I got to say about that.
I mean, it's a fact. It's a fact.
We're definitely more of an open-minded generation, and eventually it's going to be us. And with that open-mindedness comes a lot of types of people. What would you say is the trans umbrella?
Well, I was going to say that trans doesn't always mean transgender. So the word trans, the prefix trans, doesn't have to go. It can go along with many other things. So the trans umbrella can be anyone who is gender nonconforming. And what I mean by gender nonconforming is someone that doesn't adhere to, societal, stereotypical gender norms. A lot of people think that to be trans, you have to transition.
I don't fully adhere to that. I think the way I like to use the word trans is if you're not cis, you're trans.
And a lot of people get that confused. Like, a lot of people don't realize that trans doesn't mean someone who is, changing the sex they were assigned at birth. It's ultimately just taking different aspects of, like, humanity and sort of putting them together, I feel, for some people.
It's like a unique hodgepodge. We have androgyny, and we have non-binary individuals, and we have gender non-conforming individuals.
We have gender queer individuals.
Bigender.
I feel like, though, there is a little bit of a divide within the trans community and the cis community.
Oh, yeah, that's where you see people like the TERFs. The TERFs, what is that? The trans exclusionary radical feminists.
So
the bane of my existence.
A lot of people think that, the two worlds can't combine, that trans people can't hang out with cis people because cis people don't respect trans people, which is, that happens.
In my experience with the cis people that I hang around, they get a little squirrely around it. I'm particularly chill when it comes to that, just because I'm more androgynous at the moment. Like, I really just like to fuck with gender. I don't really adhere to just one or the other.
A lot of people have problems with that.
Right.
Because it can't be defined, so they're, like, creeped out by it. Like, what?
Yeah. And, nothing has to be in absolutes. That's the thing. Mm-hmm. I feel like, the world is so big. There's so many things going on. Why does everything has to be absolute? It can't just be. It's crazy that, like, there are people that would really exclude trans people from feminist things, and they don't believe the trans struggle.
I will say, though, that there is a little bit of a divide between cisgender and trans people within the LGBT community.
God, that sets me off more than anything.
It's really difficult.
How dare somebody that's already a marginalized group
exclude someone.
Exactly.
Like, who are you to be like, nah, you can't come in here? I mean, there's a divide within every community. There's white gays versus black gays. There are a lot of people who like to fit this, like, perfect image of what it means to be, like, LGBT, even though they're definitely excluding the T. But, like, if you are outside of that box, if you're queer, if you're non-binary, whatever, a lot of gay individuals do not want to have you in their spaces, which brings us to, creating spaces of our own.
I mean, it is kind of shitty. Like, let me tell y'all a story. Imagine you're a young little trans individual. You're in the outskirts of a major city. You have to drive a whole hour to go to a gay club, and then you're treated as lesser. You're ignored. People, like, stay away from you. What kind of life is that? What are you guys doing to your trans sisters and brothers?
I have a question for you, though. How do you feel when you go into a gay club?
I think it really depends, because if I'm in, like, full geesh, if I'm in full drag, then it's like I'm a goddess among peasants.
Okay. That's a nice way to look at it.
It's crazy that white gays will admire a drag queen.
They worship drag queens
more than a trans woman. That's the real shit.
You know what? You know what it is, though? They like it as long as it isn't real. As long as it's, like, a show, you know?
This whole podcast makes you want to go out and punch a gay.
Because a lot, like, straight people, too. A lot of straight people are just like, oh, yes, drag queens, they're so great. As long as they can take off all that makeup and be a man again, it's fine.
That is true.
But if you're trans, forget it. A lot of people are creeped out by, like, the permanence of it. It really sucks. And the reason that it's so difficult to talk about is because, like, the two of us started out in these, you know, like, gay spaces, I guess you would say. But
shout out to the Georgia State Gay Straight Alliance.
What's up? What's good? But it's hard to feel, like, welcomed in those spaces at times because
I know that there was some big drama beef back to the time when we were there, when it was big issues between the cisgendered gays and the transgender gays. We had some real beef. We don't have to get into that. We ain't got to get no names. I would love to. Trust me, I would love to. But what it came down to was that the trans individuals just wanted to be heard, respected, and they wanted to feel valued.
Right.
And
validated.
That's the word that I was looking for. And just the gay individuals, they weren't willing to work with the pronouns, the name changes, and stuff like that. And I understand that it could be tumultuous, but if you think that it's tumultuous for you, you can't even imagine what the person is going through. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to find ourselves. And if it takes someone a little longer, they have to go through a little bit. That's just
There's nothing wrong with changing things up. And I'm not gonna lie, I was one of those people who was shady towards some of those people. Like, I was like, okay.
You what?
Yes.
How dare you?
I was like, first of all, why are we changing our name every week? But there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with cultivating your ultimate identity. Like, you go through stages. It's
trial and error.
Yeah. You go through stages. We all do. And there's no difference between someone going through a transition page. Yeah, there's no difference between someone going through a transitional period with their gender and someone going through a transitional period with their, you know, style of dress or the music they listen to, or, you know, just personality things, what you like, what you don't like. You gotta figure it out. And if you're publicly figuring it out, you know, people are always gonna talk shit. People always talk shit.
People will always talk shit. But you know what? You have a choice to listen to it or not.
I hope you guys took some fantastic notes today. I hope you learned something. I hope you feel like a more well-rounded individual after listening to this. I hope you don't go outside and judge people no more after listening to this. What else? Galaxy.
I have a little story. This actually relates more to our dating and talking episode where we were talking about apps. So, I had somebody hit me up on Grindr, and they said, hey, so, fuck me if I'm wrong, but isn't your name Easy Bottom? And I thought that was probably one of the funniest pickup lines I've ever heard. So I decided to say, Easy Bottom is my Christian name. But you know what the fuck that was? It was an ad. They have ads on Grindr now, and I hate the world.
Galaxy's a little upset. I do have something, though. Stealth. You know the term stealth?
Oh my god, stealth.
I feel like we definitely need to talk about that. And I was going to ask if you felt as though there needs to be a space for trans individuals and, like, dating or not.
Oh
because,
my
like,
god! I never told you guys the story. I got banned from Tinder.
You did?
I got banned from Tinder because I had photos of myself. I am trans. I wrote it in my bio. I started liking all these boys, and I got banned. I had no idea how to get my profile back.
You
I
know
had to
they
make a
have
new
an
one.
option now for trans women.
now. I
Yeah.
would have loved it a couple years ago
Yeah.
when I straight up got banned for being trans.
That's
I should have
crazy.
put them on blast for that.
No, for real.
I
You're the
could've
one
made
who
money.
pioneered this whole
It's
thing.
me. I'm Marsha P. Johnson. Oh my god, the Stonewall and Tinder. Yeah, that was
Oh my
me.
goodness.
That was me.
But, you know, this is where it gets a little tricky for me sometimes, because there are some trans people who don't like to live their lives as, you know, trans. Like, they don't want to be labeled as just a trans person. They just want to be male, female. That's
Right.
it. I don't need to tell you I'm trans.
I think stealth can be dangerous.
I think it can too, but I'm saying, like, do you think that because there aren't as many spaces for trans people that, like, it's even necessary for there to be a designated, like, app or club or something?
I think if there's an app, we're gonna see like cisgender
Yeah.
people infiltrating like real
That
quick.
could get really dangerous,
And that's
too.
already an issue. I think we have a good thing going on right now where the apps are allowing you to pick more genders than just male or female.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably a lot better for us. But getting a trans-specific app, because there's no way to weed out the people that aren't and the people that go there with bad intentions.
Right. And also, I feel like you shouldn't have to have that. Like, you
Absolutely.
should be able to get on any app that you want as a trans woman and let people know or not let people know that you're a trans woman.
Yeah.
And that should be that.
But stealth is a really like hard topic because it really goes into passing, which is a problematic term in and of itself.
I wrote a whole paper on that. By the way, if you don't know what stealth means, it means not telling people that you're trans. Like, just
Yeah.
living your life as...
Not letting someone know. I think stealth pertains specifically to dating and sexual encounters. Because you can choose to not divulge that information to your coworkers,
yeah.
to your friends, to your family, to anybody around you. Yeah.
It's up to the individual.
It's up to the individual. Just know that you definitely have to read the situation, and if you feel as though you could be in danger for divulging that information, then you probably shouldn't. Just make sure that you read the room and always have your health as the highest interest. Because, I mean, there are girls really out here, like, losing their lives because of who they are, and that's so sad.
Yeah. It's scary out there. Just for being who you are.
Mm-hmm.
People get real upset about that.
So we have covered a lot of topics, and if you took notes, you essentially have a study guide through gender, and that's worth millions.
Take it with you everywhere you go.
Go hug a queer person, tell them you love them, and I hope that you heard us loud and queer.